Happy San Francisco.
All right, you guys, it's episode 43 of Inner Demons. And without further ado, I'm going to get straight to it. So check it out, you guys. Earlier today, I did a live with you guys. It was this afternoon around 2 o'clock. I kicked it with you guys for about 2 hours. And at the conclusion of that live, I had asked you guys for, advice as far as should I drop an Inner Demons, a war story, or a curve talk, or even a game time, start that new series. And some of you guys weighed in. I didn't really get that many suggestions, so I told you guys, you know what, fuck it. I'm gonna go for the hat trick, see if I can knock out 3 different episodes. It doesn't look like that's gonna happen, but at least I'm gonna come through with 2 of them for you guys. I already hit you guys with a war story, so I'm gonna run an Inner Demon right now. Now, let me just say this before I get into this. It's been a while since I did the last episode, but I remember kind of like the crux of what I talked about. And a lot of it had to do with, me finding out that my biological father was actually killed by the NF. Now, this was information that I stumbled across, and it came completely, it was unexpected. I didn't expect it. I had a conversation with another individual, Leo Cano from San Jose. This is the same individual that I told you guys would end up catching a slicing in the county jail on Reaper from Fresno, Coronado, or Gabriel Coronado, and then he would end up getting pulled into the indictments. I want to say Leo Cano ended up getting 14 years. Don't quote me on it, but at any rate, he got indicted behind that, took however many years he got, which was around 14, got convicted, went to the Bay and done his time. Now, I ran into him right after he got convicted, and he just hit Quentin from the Santa Clara County Jail. And he came across as a well-rounded, well-educated individual that had obviously been around, a lot of NF members and a lot of NR members that had a lot of schooling. He articulated himself well, and, he was a wealth of knowledge himself as far as the NR goes. He had a lot of history about the NF, and, he just left the county jail where Pinky was at, Big Chente, Vincent Arroyo, where he was at. You guys should be seeing pictures of these guys. They should be popping up as, I mentioned them. But again, this conversation, it was just, he was giving me a little bit of insight about Pelican Bay and I want to say this was around the first time that I was getting ready to go up to Pelican Bay. So he was lacing me up, telling me what to expect. And, along with that, he was telling me who was up there. And he started mentioning some of the guys that had been around and that had a lot of, influence within the organization at that time. Pinky, Big Chente, Corny, Pantera, Big Smiley, Cuete. So when he mentioned Pablo Peña, Pantera, that was a name that I always kept with me from the time I was a kid. From the day that my mother called me home from school and told me that my biological dad had been killed. Now, let me make it clear. I really didn't have a relationship with my biological father when I was young. He dipped out on me and my mom when I was probably like around one years old, between 1 and 2. And I would never hear anything about him, see him. He would never come into my life again until the age of 11, till I was 11 years old. Now, I told you guys, both of my parents were addicts. They were both heavily addicted to drugs, and my mom was a young addict that was caught up in that cycle. My dad split, but at least my mother always maintained some type of contact with me throughout my life. And she would eventually put me in foster care because she couldn't take care of me and my brothers, and she felt like she was doing the best thing for us. She felt like it was the right thing to do. I'm sure she didn't want to give us up, but she didn't have the financial means or the resources to take care of us. So she did what any mother that cares about her kids would do, and that's putting us in a home that would guarantee that we were taken care of. So that's when we went through foster care. Me and my brothers, one of my brothers would end up getting caught up in the system, and I would never see or hear from him again. You guys already know who the other big head is. You've seen him on YouTube. You've heard him before. He's been on my channel. But that was a name that I always remember from the time that, you know, my mom had told me that he had been killed. Now, this happened like right after I started to get to know him. So my real father, he popped into my life at the age of 11. One day it was like, you know, my mom, when I came home from school, my mom pulled me aside and she's like, look, she was like, I'm gonna be honest with you, your real dad reached out. He wants to meet you. He wants to get to know you. And hopefully I'm not repeating too much of what I already repeated in 43, but if so, if this is repetitive, don't trip. I'm still gonna go on to some more things. But you know, at that time, my mom she was involved in another relationship. So she was with another guy that would become my stepfather. And this guy raised me literally from the time that I was just a young kid. And I'm talking about, you know, from like after I came home from the foster care that I was involved in. This guy that she was involved in, he would literally become my stepfather, you know, not only after I came back to my mother's custody after going through all the foster homes that I was in, but even during the time when I was in foster care and my mother would visit me, this guy would pop in and, you know, he stepped right into the role of being my stepfather. So when my mom told me about my biological father tapping in with her and that he wanted to get to know me and he was interested in having a relationship with me, there was a part of me that felt like if I really expressed that I wanted to get to know him, that I would be being disloyal to my stepfather. I remember that. And that's got to be the same with a lot of, you know, a lot of kids or a lot of you guys that have been parts of blended families where you've had foster parents, whether it was the mother or the father, and then your real father, real biological mother came back into your life. You know, it's kind of, it's an awkward situation because I didn't want my stepfather, I don't want to hurt his feelings. I didn't want him to feel like, you know, all these years he'd been my father. He'd been there as a father figure. He was teaching me how to throw baseballs. He was, you know, being there with me, doing my homework with me when I needed help. And, you know, he stepped right into that role and he was a good dude. And I embraced him as my father. But this came out of nowhere. And, you know, the thing that was cool about this guy too is he had a lot of class. He obviously he somehow he sensed that I was feeling like that because, you know, he was like, hey man, go visit your father, man. Go get in touch with your roots. It's okay. I'm still your dad, man. You know what I'm saying? It's okay. But you gotta go see who, you know, go see who your parents are, man. Go see who your family is. Get in touch with your roots. It's not gonna change nothing here. And I needed that, man, because once he told me that, gave me the green light, that's when I felt like it was okay to go have a relationship with my dad. Unfortunately, I would only go out to San Jose where he was staying at, and I would see him probably like 5 or 6 times. Now, when I would go out to visit him, my mom would let me go out for like the weekend, 3 days, maybe Friday through Sunday or whatever. You know, I'd go out there with him. And at that age, 11 years old, I was just a little guy, but I remember going to work with him and he was a lumper. He loaded trucks and I would help him load the trucks. He's a big motherfucker, man. And I was just some little skinny kid, but I was, you know, in the back of that truck trying to bust ass with him and trying to help him load. And, you know, he had a girlfriend at one time, which became the mother of, I have some half brothers and half sisters that he had from that relationship. Her name was Kathy. Anyway, he got with her, and you know, this guy would take me out to the park, and he introduced me to his Sanchas, different relationships he was having. You know, she was cool too, Kathy. his girlfriend or his fiance. I don't know if they ever got married, but she was cool. And that's the kind of relationship we had. He let me smoke weed when I'd go out there, and for the most part, he seemed like a good dude. But that's all I really got to know is, that superficial part of him. I didn't really know what was going on behind the scenes, what he did. However, later on, I would kind of find out, I'd hear things about him. He was a violent cat. He was out there in the streets. He used to fight a lot. He used to get into a lot of confrontations. I wonder where I got that streak from. And, the day that he got killed, I guess, and I've told you guys this already, but I guess there was a female that, led Pantera and some other cats to believe that, my dad was a big time connection and that he had a lot of weight and money sitting at the pad. So they went over there with intentions, bad intentions, to take his shit. And, the day they went over there, Kathy told me that they were in bed, just laying there. They just laid down. Somebody knocked on the door. He got up, went to the door. 5 minutes passed. Everything was quiet. And all of a sudden she heard some tussling. And she heard something that sounded like a firecracker. She got up, ran outside. She heard a car, taking off. And, my father was laying there, gritting his teeth with a bullet in his head. And, just hearing that right there at 11 years old, for a long time, I'm not going to lie. My mom, when she told me that my dad had got killed out there, I didn't cry. I didn't let out a bunch of emotions like probably a lot of kids would have. I held it inside. I was real good at hiding my emotions. And I think I did that because of a lot of the things that I experienced going through foster care. I never got sexually abused going through those homes, but they did a good job at, mental abuse, making me feel like I was a piece of shit, making me feel like, I was the example to their biological kids of what a kid shouldn't be like, what a fucked up kid was. That's how they used to treat me. So the pain or the hurt, anything that I used to feel as a kid, as a young kid, I used to just push that shit down. I used to push it down. I wouldn't cry. I'd hold my emotions in, and I'd let them come out when I was by myself or when I needed to let them out. It's the same thing when my mom told me that he passed away. I looked at her and I was like, okay, and she was like, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Um, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to respond. And she was like, well, it's okay. Just do it however you need to do it. And I did, I pushed it down, and eventually, it would come out. But because I was just barely getting to know him, and he was my biological dad, so I cared about him. But just hearing the story about him laying there with a bullet in his head, gritting his teeth, it fucked me up for, as a young kid, for a few years. I had a lot of bad, dreams and nightmares about seeing him like that. I kept picturing what he looked like, and that's just a trip. But it's a trip how when I was young like that, I found ways of just suppressing my feelings, and I was just a kid that was just, I learned how to hide my feelings. I became good at that. Anyway, not to get off track, man, but I know that, I talk about those type of things right there because I know a lot of people can relate to it, applying it to different situations. And again, it resonates with certain people. A lot of kids, a lot of people went through a lot of similar experiences that I went through, whether it was mental, physical abuse, or whatever. So that's why I kind of tend to elaborate on that kind of stuff. Anyway, so a lot of the things that happened between around 93, 92, 94, 95, 96, I've talked about in war stories and other profiles. So I don't want to talk about a lot of the same things that happened. I'm just going to kind of run it to you guys in kind of like just jumble it all together so that I can get up to like 96, 97. Because you guys have heard a lot about what's happened. I was gang banging on the streets. I went to Pelican Bay a couple times. I went to Corcoran. You know, I went up to Pelican Bay with the Roach brothers. I was up there with them in the 90s. I was there when Eddie Roach ended up getting pulled back to Santa Clara County, and they charged him for that double homicide involving Federico Arevalo and Gilbert Garcia was wrapped up in that. You know, a lot of these things I've already talked about. One thing I will go over again is I'll talk a little bit about the first experience I had when I got up to Pelican Bay. And, you know, prior to going to the shoot program in Pelican Bay, I heard a lot of things about it. A lot of the myths that a lot of you heard, you know, that the shower comes to you, that we read our mail on TV screens, and that, you know, your tray comes, you know, it comes flying to you on some type of elevated fucking they got some type of apparatus that, you know, what do you call it when something levitates? I'm bullshitting, but I heard a lot of those myths that were going around about Pelican Bay, and it all ended up being bullshit. But one thing I did hear from the homies is that this is where all the leadership was at. This is where all the canales were at. This is where all the NF members and the BGF and the ABs and the Mexican Mafia, this is where everybody was at. And aside from that, there was also a lot of dropouts and degenerates that were in the shoot program hiding. They were hermits. So it was a trip. You know, I'm just going to kind of go over this experience real quick. One of the first experiences I had up in Pelican Bay, just kind of breeze over it because I think I talked about it in another Inner Demon, one of the first few that I went through. One of the first times that I went to Pelican Bay, they sent me to D7, and you know, there was hardly anybody in that block right there. I want to say the only NF member that I would find out later that was in that block was Knoppers from Sacra. Anyway, so I get up there and I get to a pod where there's nothing but ABs, Mexican Mafia members, and some Southsiders. There was no homeboys in that pod. Those were the only individuals that were there, housed in that pod. Now, again, I'm not going to talk about everything that happened while I was there. I'm just going to run this brief story by you guys because it's kind of funny. But, you know, I would get there. So there was only one individual that was there that was a Norteño sympathizer that I talked to, and his name was Bandit. He was from, I want to say he was from Modesto. I can't remember his name. It was Lujan. I don't remember. But anyway, he was a Tejano. He was a Tejano, and he was a Norteño or an NF sympathizer. So he was also the porter in that pod. And, you know, when I first got there, he embraced me, looked out for me, and he was the only one that I really, you know, conversed with on the tier there as far as on that level. I used to talk to the Southsiders in the woods and the ABs that were there to an extent. At that time, though, the door policy wasn't in effect and it was considered a war zone. So the interaction wasn't the same. Anyway, so for about a good 5 months, I was just there with Bandit. It was just me and him, no other homeboys that came into the pod. So, you know, I really didn't have that much interaction with other homies up there at that point. Now, at some point, one of the woods, two of the woods that were there on the bottom tier ended up moving out of that pod. And that obviously it opened up a cell. So I remember on this particular day, you know, the pod door opens up. And again, I've told you guys this before, when you're locked up in Pelican Bay or you're in these type of environments on the tier and a cell leaves and you guys are getting ready to get, you know, some new residents on the tier, it's a big thing. It's like we got some new blood coming, you know what I mean? Hopefully it'd be some homies, it'd be some characters that, you know, it's just good to have something new. It's probably like your highlight of the day for everybody. Everybody wants to see who it is, and everybody's hoping it's one of their homies. But at the end of the day, you don't give a fuck. It's somebody new. It's some new blood. You're so slammed down in Pelican Bay. You just want some new blood back there. So in comes Pancho from Sacra and Jaime Corpus from Fresno. These two guys come walking in. At first, I don't know who they are. They just look like, raza. I don't know if they're Southsiders or Norteños. So they come in, they start greeting people. Bandit can see the front of the pod from his cell, so he yells down, "Hey Pancho, hey, it's me, it's Bandit from Modesto." So Pancho runs up the stairs, goes to his gate. They have a conversation. I imagine it's pretty likely that this happened. That Bandit told him, "Hey, you got a homeboy at the end of the tier down there in 209, boxer from Frisco's." Soon as he gets through talking to Bandit, he cuts straight down the tier towards my cell. He comes up, puts his little finger through the hole. That's how you shake hands there. It's just a little touch of the fingertips. He's like, "Hey, what's up, homie? My name's Pancho from Sakura." He goes, "My cellie's name is Jaime from I think they call him like the Black Pulpers, some old crazy shit. Them guys in the 80s and the 70s used to come up with some crazy plagazos, man. But anyways, like, my cellie's Jaime Corpus from Fresno." He said, "We're both carnales. We're both carnales, and we've been around, bro." He's like, "It's a pleasure to be in your in your presence." He says, "We'll get at you," right? And it just blew my mind that this dude don't know me for shit, but that he just exposed his status just that fast. So I'm still kind of like reeling, sitting there like tripping, like, did dude really just do that right now? Because this was at a time, you guys got to understand that a lot of motherfuckers were getting validated. And, that whole process, the validation process, and people getting, validated and getting indie tournament shoes. During that time, you had to be real conscious of telling other people about who you were, your status. You didn't just expose it openly like that. So it threw me. So anyway, when he identifies himself like that, I'm like, okay, all right, homie, I send my respects, bro. So boom, they go down to their cell and they move in, they get their cell situated. Next couple of days, they get at me with long ass fucking kite, about how they were leaders in the fucking mob, and they're gonna start working with me, educating me, and that there's a major split within the organization right now. So, there's just a lot going on, and in due time, they're gonna put me up on game and just all kind of shit, right? So I'm tripping on these dudes. Like, why are they telling me all this? They don't know nothing about me besides what Bandit probably told them, and it can't be much because he don't know shit about my history. Anyway, so there was one other dude there at that time that was from Hayward, Ray. Ray, I forget his last name, but he was a Norteño that had a history of setting up Norteños. He's basically a Mexican mafia sympathizer. And I didn't know that at the time. Later on, I'd have an incident with him. But when I came to find out who he was through Bandit and he told me his history, I never said another word to that dude. Anyway, so he was in the pod too as well. So anyway, in time we're interacting, and these guys are telling me how they're fucking major figures within the mob, and they're sending me portions of the NF Constitution, and part of me is like, I'm kind of intrigued that these dudes are exposing this to me, and I'm feeling like, damn, I'm finally about to take that step. But at the same time, I'm also leery, like, because just the way that they expose themselves. So, we used to play chess to pass time. I used to play with both Pancho and his celly, and his celly was the quiet one, the older guy from Fresno. He'd be quiet for most of the time. Pancho had the big mouth. He'd be the one that would, always be talking from their cell down there, where the other cat would just lay back. But we played chess occasionally, and I used to play with them every couple days, sometimes every day. And in the beginning, just out of respect, we'd have discrepancies. My pieces would always end up on different squares, and I'd just be like, whatever, man, fuck it, I'm not tripping. But I like to consider myself a pretty good chess player. I've been playing since the age of 11, and I don't like just to have cats cheat and announce over the tier that they beat me when it's not a legit win. I got a little bit of fucking pride. I've been playing that game since I was 11, so I took some level of pride in it. But my pieces kept moving with this dude, and at some point, I kept letting it go and I kept letting it go. But at some point, I was like, "Hey, Pancho," I was like, "Come on, man," or not Pancho, Jaime. I was like, why is it that my pieces are always moving? And it's not just the fact that they're moving. It's like they're always the pieces that they basically dictate the game. It's always like my queen. Why would I make a bum-headed move like that where you're just going to take my queen with the pawn? I'm like, come on, bro. So this one day, it had happened so much that I was just like, you know what? I'm cool, man. I'm done. You won, bro. You won. You're the chessologist. You got that title, man. It's cool. I'm done with all that. And because I confronted him and said he was a cheater, he took offense to it, and Pancho basically jumped off his bed and slammed his feet real hard on the floor. He's like, hey, hey, boxer. He's like, check it out, homeboy. He's like, set your board up. Me and you are gonna play right now, and we're gonna play for push-ups, and we're gonna do this, and I'm like, nah, bro, I'm good. I was like, I'm gonna slide back, homeboy, and I'm just gonna fucking cool my jets right now because I'm done with the chess, so I'm done, bro. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, no, it's not an option. I'm telling you, set your board up. And I'm like, bro. Now I'm like, okay, the whole pod is listening. It's quiet, and this dude's coming at me like this. So I'm like, nah, man, you didn't hear what I said. I'm done. I'm through playing, bro. You know what I'm saying? He's like, if you don't set that board up, chakas, homie. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, well, fuck it then. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But, you're not going to talk to me like I'm some kind of fucking poo butt. You know what I'm saying? I told you I'm done. And if you can't respect that, then, hey, bro, do what you got to do, man. So he's like, okay. So anyway, he comes up the next day. He slides me a kite. And it's all, about, you're going to be put on bad standards. When he comes out, I slap that fucking kite out the fucking door, and I'm like, take that fucking shit with you, bro. Give a fuck about all that. And he's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, yeah, bro. Straight up. You know what I'm saying? And I was stressed out, I'm not gonna lie. Part of me was like, you just fucked your career off and it's about to be all bad. But another part of me was like, you know what? Fuck these motherfuckers, man. You ain't gonna talk to me like I'm some kind of buster on the tier, man. And all these dudes are listening. So I got to the point where I was just like, fuck it, but I knew that I wasn't just gonna allow that to happen without trying to clean it up if I could. So, my mind was already working. I knew that there was a law library there at one point, and I knew that that's where everybody went to communicate. So I yelled over the tier to at that time some Africanos had moved in, and I yelled to one of the Africanos, hey, how do I get to the law library? And they told me, get a slip and, do this. This is what you got to do. So I'm like, all right, man, I'm gonna get that so I can get on that list this week. Catch a chain ASAP. So I need to holler at the fellas, man. And I wanted them cats to hear me say that. So anyway, because of that, Pancho strikes up another kite and he gets at me the next day, but his whole fucking demeanor changed. He's like, hey, bro, little bro. He's like, I'm going out of my way to educate you as a carnale, bro. And, I'm putting my life on the line. And right now there's a lot of shit going on in the mob. And I'm going to ask you not to go to the law library because I don't want you to get played out of pocket by the other side and this and that. So now light bulbs start going on in my mind. Oh, you don't want me to go to law library? Nah, there's something going on with these cats. There's some funny shit going on, right? So when he said that, it's like I knew that there was something going on. And sure enough, man, even though we were at war with the ABs and the Sureños and the Mexican mafia at that time, I was active. Everybody in that pod, they respected my position because the white boys got at me, and it's something like they had never done before. One of them got at me and was like, hey, check this out, boxer. Not to get in your business, but I'm going to the law library this week. and I'm gonna holler at your homies if I see anybody over there, man. I'll tap in for you. And I never asked them to do none of that, but I knew that they heard that and they didn't respect that. It's just like, if they would have had a young white cat on the tier, and his people would have tried to play him out of pocket, and I overheard it. I would like, man, homeboy's still active, even though he's an enemy. I respect him. You know what I'm saying? I don't respect these dudes that I know are trash. Fuck them dudes, man. So just out of that type of honor, I would reach out to the dude. So not only that, the Sureños reached out too, man. It was a trip. Everybody on the tier kind of seen what was happening. So the next day, the Wood goes to the law library. He comes back when they run showers. He slaps a kite under the door, and it came from Corny. And he had an opportunity to touch base with Corny when it was over there, and he told him, "Hey, this is what happened, and this is what was said on the tier." And Corny's words were like, "Hey, look, those dudes are NF hermits. They're trash. They've been trash. They've been hiding." He's like, any opportunity you get to get in the cell with any one of them dudes, get in the cell with them and go full throttle. You know what I mean? Go for broke, go for what you know, man. But don't worry about it. Them dudes are trash, and there's nothing for you to worry about. We're well aware of who they are. So I was like, wow. You know, at that point, I was like, I'm not gonna tip my hand, no. I'm gonna try to get in the cell with one of these motherfuckers. Now, the old man, I would have just slaughtered him. He was an old dude. But the good thing is he was paroling that month. So, I never let Pancho know that I had communicated with the homies. I had just kind of like I did it on the tier openly just so I can show everybody how much of a coward he was. I was like, "Hey, Pancho." He's like, "What's up?" I'm like, "Hey, Jaime's leaving next month. He's paroling, right?" And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Hey, brother." He was like, you know, um, I only got a couple months left, bro. He's like, how about me and you sell up, bro? When he leaves, so that I can get laced up, man. You know what I'm saying? I want to get gamed up. I didn't put that part over the tier, but I basically was like, when your side leaves, how about we sell up, homie? You know what I'm saying? This way we can kick it for a couple months, where I was basically saying the same thing, to get in the cell with him so he could educate me. And he straight up was like, "Nah, you know what? I already got somebody lined up." And I just laughed, as I'm sure everybody else did in there, and was just like, coward. Because even when the Woods came by to go to the shower later on that day or the next day, they just looked and smiled and was like, fucking cowards. But Pancho, Pancho would end up moving out about a week after his celly paroled. Uh, he wasn't trying to sell up with me, man. But basically the moral of the story is I got played out of pocket by two NF hermits up there. And even though I was told about to watch out for shit like that, there was a lot of dudes hiding in the cuts up there. I still, it was an experience for me, a learning experience. I got played out of pocket by these dudes, and they were slicksters, man. They obviously at one time they were NF members. They had the Constitution. They walked that walk. They talked that talk, just like righteous NF members. But this was the first time I had been around that caliber of individual, so I didn't really know how to respond the way that I should have in that situation. I was young. I was only 22 years old. Anyway, you know, after going through that situation, and I would get out, I would end up hooking up with a female I already told you guys about. I would end up having a daughter. While I was in San Quentin, I would hook up with another female, and she would end up giving me a son. And again, I don't talk too much about my kids, because I told you guys that I always felt like, because of the things that I was involved in, that it was just better for me to stay out of their lives, and not pop in every now and then, or not, you know, whenever I would come home, go visit them, and then I'd be disappearing again. I figured that, what, their mothers are probably involved in relationships, and I didn't like it, but there's probably somebody else that's going to be a father figure to them. And can I really be mad about it? No. They need that. And I wasn't giving it to them, and I couldn't because of the obligations that I had to the NF. And I was serious about those obligations. I gave my kids up for that. So, they grew up over the years, and they still, to this day, I'll be honest with you guys, my relationship with my son is still broken. And it's because he holds a lot of resentment towards me because I was never there for him. I was never there to show him how to throw a ball, or, to be there when he graduated, or to help buy him his first new car, or, anything like that. My daughter was the same thing. She held a lot of resentment towards me. But, girls are like, they're when you have a daughter, it's different. They can get away with hell, man. My daughter was like, I cared about the relationship with my son, but my daughter, that meant everything to me. And having to give her up, it was tough, man. It was tough. But at least I've been able to somewhat mend that relationship with her. She still holds a lot of resentment towards me because I wasn't there. She was like, the first time I met her, she stood behind a gate because she was scared of me, because people told her that I was violent, that I was out there in the streets hurting people, and that I was a gang member, and that this is all I did on the streets. So I tripped out, man. She stood behind a gate, and I didn't say nothing, but it really bothered me that she did that. But it was obvious, you know. But you guys got to remember, man, when we're locked up and we commit to these movements, these organizations, or the gangs that we get involved in, and we make a conscious decision not to be there for our kids, they're gonna hold on to their resentment, and sometimes it can last a lifetime. Sometimes those things are they don't get fixed. Sometimes they do. If you're lucky, they do. I got two beautiful granddaughters, from my daughter. Fucking grandpa, man. Damn. Yeah, I will be 53 next month in March. March 25th, I'll be 53. That's crazy. I can't believe that I'm actually over a half of 100, man. But time flies, man. I guess I'm on my last leg of life. Anyway, so, again, those are things that I had to deal with over the years. The broken relationships with my kids. I had to make a choice, though, either become a part-time father, a full-time father, or do what's best for them. If you're going to be involved in the criminal element, you're going to be out there running around on the streets, and living that type of life, the best thing to do is to just stay back. Don't bring that around them. And that's what I did. I a lot of the people that I was even involved with, the females I was involved with over the years, I didn't even want to bring them around the things that I was involved with, because I understood that there was always a level of threat towards anybody that I was involved with in a relationship. And that's one of the reasons why I never discussed my business with them, or I never brought them around, or never had one of them go visit somebody for me, or facilitate some communication. Hell no. Nah. You ain't holding nothing. You're not doing nothing. You're not a safe house. You're not a three-way phone contact. You're not doing none of that. Anyway, so again, and through some of these episodes, war stories or other inner demons, I've talked about a lot of the stuff that happened between the years of 92 to 96. So the next episode, I'm basically going to pick up from like 97. And this is around the time when I was in the adjustment center with individuals like Mikey, MC from Salinas. There's going to be a picture you guys are going to see. You guys have seen it before, but there's a picture of like me, MC, Smiley from San Jose, Smiley from Richmond's in there, Casper from San Jose's in there, Crow from Castroville, Fly from Chole is in there, Payaso, the one that's all burnt up from Chole, is in there, Shorty from San Francisco, one of my homies from my neighborhood, is in there, Gangster from San Jose, and Chopo from Watsonville. I believe that's everybody that's in that picture. But this is around the time that I'll pick up from that point on when little man got killed. I'm not going to talk about that because, again, I've done a profile on it. I've talked about it. I want to get you guys up to where I was out there in San Jose and a lot of things were happening so that, I can talk about the current stuff. But, at that time, again, Mike Eo ended up getting killed in 98. So, just between those years of 92 and 96, I would come back and forth on violations, and I would get around, different faces, different NR members, and every time it was the same thing: bonds, format, weaponry, different topics of education. It was the same thing. It was just different faces. So I continued to, become more seasoned, and through time, I would take on, different positions within the organization, whether it was, and this is not the NF yet, this is still the NR, whether it's an exercise coordinator, a tier security, a yard security, these things or these positions were all part of my, me elevating. I had to learn how to be a tier security or a yard security or you had squad leaders, squad members. I had to fulfill all those positions, in order to eventually have held down every position within the NR. And, it was just, again, it was all part of that growing experience. And, as I would come in and out of prison and continue to function in different regiments at different points in time, my kids would end up getting older. And, I would hear about them and I would see pictures of them throughout the years, and it would bother me. I was like, man, they get big quick. And I seen pictures of my daughter when she started to get bigger, and it was like I could walk past her right now and she wouldn't even fucking know she wouldn't even know it was me. And that's sad, man. It's sad, but it's the truth. As far as the, my family went, it was the same thing too, man. It was every time I get out, I go by my mom's and my stepfather's, and it would be the same thing. Their lives, they lived just a sad existence, man. Their relationship was broken. However, they remained a part of each other's lives until they would both die. But their life consisted of shooting dope, being hermits, and just living just a life full of routine and just devoid of happiness. My father and my mom eventually, my stepfather and my mom would eventually split up because, they had both had affairs, but because they'd been together so long, my stepfather would end up getting a girlfriend. This is the way that their relationship was. He had a girlfriend that he lived with, but during the day, he'd come kick it with my mom from like 8 until 3 every day religiously. And every day he'd bring her the same meal from Burger King with the coffee, and they would sit there, shoot dope, play, do whatever they did for their 8 hours during their day. And then he'd go home to her at night, leave my mom with some dope so she could wake up in the morning and get high. And that was what their life consisted of. And again, I've told you guys about this already, but I didn't agree with it, but I stood down because one time I did try to speak on it. My mom was like, hey, it's okay. And I didn't agree with the things that was going on in her life, but she was a big girl, man. And she was happy. And it was bad to see that, that she was just happy with just what she was getting. And it was just sad, man. I'm sure a lot of you that have parents that were addicts and that lived that type of lifestyle, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, this inner demons, I know, was kind of all over the place. I'm talking about a lot of different things and it's not really in sequence. However, I hope there's something that, caught your guys' interest. Again, when I do episode 46, I'm just going to come in from like 96 on, talk about everything that kind of happened from that point on. That's when things are going to start heating up. And, you know, I'm just kind of revving to get into all this stuff that happened in the jail and on the streets out there in San Jose, and you know, all that stuff. So anyways, I appreciate you guys for tapping in again. I didn't do the hat trick, but I got at least 2 of them out to you guys. Hopefully these will be released by the morning. This is episode 46 of Inner Demons. It's your boy B, and I'm out.